All right, everybody, welcome back. It's episode 4 of St. Joseph Workshop. We got something pretty cool cooking this week. We got Father Glenn Sudano from the Franciscan Friars of Renewal in New York City. Um, this was Jason's idea to bring him on as our guest, and we're all really excited about it because we've heard such great things about Father Glenn. So, Jason, you want to tell us a little bit more about him before we dive into the interview?
Absolutely. I was going through some spiritual, what you would say, spiritual warfare, and my grandparents told me about him, and he gave me some great spiritual guidance. And it was one of these things where we go to mass, we live the life, but there's still a clog in the wheel somewhere, and Father Glenn was able to unclog all of that, and just listening to him speak to me and having conversations with him really transformed my life. And I definitely recommend people talking to him. And I think they're really going to enjoy this interview that we have with Father Glenn, because he definitely has a special place in heaven. That is for sure. He knows how to get you unstuck in the spiritual sense, and also in the secular world to get you unstuck as well. So, yeah, without further ado, here's Father Glenn.
We're sitting down tonight with Father Glenn, excuse me, from the CFRs up in New York City. And real quick, I just want to toss it up to my co-host Jason to introduce Father Glenn a bit more.
Thank you, Andrew. So, yes, so Father Glenn is somebody that's near and dear to my heart. We did a little spiritual guidance together, and after spiritual guidance, a lot of things started to open up in my life, especially my mind and my heart and my soul, to the will of God. So, without further ado, Father Glenn, thank you for joining us on the podcast. And if you would like, please introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself to start off.
Yes. Okay. My name is Father Glenn. My last name is Sudano. I guess the two names don't really go together. I'm probably Anthony Sudano, and Tony Sudano would fit better than Glenn, but Glenn it is. And originally from Brooklyn, and I am here in Harlem on 142nd off of Broadway, and I'm living in the house of the postulants. Postulants are the young men who are joining our community, and right now we have 9 of them, and they've just been here for around a month. And so, although I'm no longer in positions of authority and responsibility or direct responsibility in the community, I'm here living with them, and I'm sort of like the I'm a bit older, and so I'm sort of like the uncle, and so I'm like Mr. Rogers. I have my little office here.
We're sitting down tonight with Father Glenn, excuse me, from the CFRs up in New York City. And real quick, I just want to toss it up to my co-host Jason to introduce Father Glenn a bit more.
Thank you, Andrew. So, yes, so Father Glenn is somebody that's near and dear to my heart. We did a little spiritual guidance together, and after spiritual guidance, a lot of things started to open up in my life, especially my mind and my heart and my soul, to the will of God. So, without further ado, Father Glenn, thank you for joining us on the podcast. And if you would like, please introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself to start off.
Yes. Okay. My name is Father Glenn. My last name is Sudano. I guess the two names don't really go together. I'm probably Anthony Sudano, and Tony Sudano would fit better than Glenn, but Glenn it is. And originally from Brooklyn, and I am here in Harlem on 142nd off of Broadway, and I'm living in the house of the postulants. Postulants are the young men who are joining our community, and right now we have 9 of them, and they've just been here for around a month. And so, although I'm no longer in positions of authority and responsibility or direct responsibility in the community, I'm here living with them, and I'm sort of like the I'm a bit older, and so I'm sort of like the uncle, and so I'm like Mr. Rogers. I have my little office here, and they come by, and I'll hopefully share some words of wisdom with them. But I enjoy being with the young men, and I think it keeps me young. So So I enjoy being here at St. Joseph's in Harlem.
Excellent. So, Father, as that this is a men's podcast, if you could explain a little bit about the CFRs and who they are, and maybe some men that are listening are thinking about that vocation of brotherhood and not just priesthood, and if you could explain a little bit about that, and kind of the experience of living in the place that you live.
Yeah, well, our community started in 1987. Some of our listeners may be well familiar with a somewhat Father Benedict Rochelle, who is well known, especially on EWTN. Father Benedict Rochelle, and also another well-known personage on EWTN, and is Father Andrew Apostoli. Father Benedict and Father Andrew and 6 other Capuchin Franciscans. So all of us who belong to the Capuchin Franciscan order. We had a great desire to bring renewal to the community, partly because this, I guess, relates to the whole idea of masculinity and the call, the interior call of each man. We thought that the life was a bit flaccid and perhaps not as robust and energetic and maybe as challenging as young people really want life to be. And so sometimes this can be, it happened to any institution. It becomes somewhat comfortable and somewhat staid and settled and secure. And so this was back in '87, and things were not very healthy. I mean, there was very, very fine men, and but we just thought that there was a real need for like a restart, as sometimes people use this expression, and so we wanted to actually remain in the order, but to live a little bit more of a maybe a focused life of being with the poor and living in more of a radical poverty and prayer and that's sort of what really the Vatican Council wanted all religious to do. And but anyway, point being is that we were not able to do it in the order itself, which is a worldwide order. Most people know the Capuchins or the Cappuccini or the Cappuccinos, but we had to leave the order in order to do what we felt called to do, and that was to live a life of once again a greater fidelity to our Franciscan ideals. And so we had to we went under the Archbishop of New York, Cardinal O'Connor, and we had to sort of start from scratch and begin again, and 8 of us, and so we were given a residence in the South Bronx, which we actually are still there, although in 1987 was very raw and quite frankly was very dangerous at that time. I'm not sure if any of our listeners were old enough to know about the South Bronx at that time, and crack came on the scene, and it was where we were was not even a neighborhood. It was almost like a non-neighborhood, and thank God things have picked up over the years, but it's still, of course, a poor area, and but this is an area near Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, and anyway, so that's where we had to begin again, and but we started attracting some young men, which we knew that would happen. Once again, men are hardwired for adventure, challenge. You want to. You want to face life, so the guys were ready for the task. Although we were living in a very poor neighborhood and living very simply ourselves, but this is what actually attracted the young vocations, and quite frankly, it still attracts the vocations. We have certain things like not having a television. Well, you might sort of think, well, that's a sort of a nice thing, but when you think of how many domiciles in the United States don't even have a television, there's really not that many, and even religious houses of men and women, the television still dominates the the recreation room, and anyway, the CFRs, we decided not to have a television, and we decided to have a Eucharistic Holy Hour every day. We also wanted to do manual work, and so we do our own cooking and our own cleaning, and we wear our religious habit wherever we are. Point being is, some people might use the word radical. I'm not too sure whether that's the right word, but it's certainly we're living in an intentional life, which is sort of on the cutting edge. And but how does this relate to men? I think men want that. They don't. When religion becomes too lukewarm, and all the edges are buffed down, and there's once again no real edge or adventure. Men sort of shy away, and so vocations, especially guy vocations, the guys that are coming to us, they want a challenge. In fact, part of our postulancy in this house, they go to the desert for 2 weeks, and they go on a sort of a survival type of thing, and it's a program, but it just shows that if you have guys in formation and they're cutting out paper dolls and finger painting, I don't mean that literally, but I mean if you're not doing anything that's really that's on the edge and adventurous, guys really are really not interested. And maybe the guys who are interested in that, they may not be the very ones that you want. So anyway, so that's what we're hoping to do, and thank God we have 9 postulants, which is a good number, and we just actually sent 10 over to the novitiate. Those, when they leave here, they go to the novitiate in Newark, New Jersey, and so just last year we had 10 guys go over there. So vocations are up and running, and but the trick is, once again, is to stay fresh and to stay engaged and to stay faithful and real and healthy, and that's what's going to bring healthy vocations in the church.
Well, Jesus, Father, that sounds terrific. And the last thing you had said was, stay healthy, stay real, and all that is, I think, refreshing for many of us to hear. And I personally experienced some of it actually last year. I was part of the Samuel group in Manhattan, and so I got to interact with and meet some of the CFRs, and I have to say that rings true into your charism that I experienced. And I think that my question for you, which is a question that Andrew and Jason also have, and it's pretty much the basis of our podcast, which we're asking many people, which is, in your work in the postulancy, or with the postulants that you have and with the postulants that you have had, what is it that you see that young men today most need or are most lacking?
Yeah, I see it more and more, I guess, as young people are becoming more, they're sort of growing up in the virtual age, if you will. I may see it even more and more each year. To me, and I think this is the problem. They sort of, the young people now are growing up in their world is a little bit too protected and too insulated from reality, and so I'm not sure yourselves, but certainly a number of your listeners who are older. I mean, I'm in my 60s, but when you were growing up, you didn't want to stay in the house. You were punished to stay in the house. Now the young people, they want to stay in the house and they don't want to go outside. And but outside is reality. Outside is when I was a kid, we were out all day, and when it was in Brooklyn, when it's only when the lights went on that you had to be home. So the street lights, So when you went out, you weren't supervised. You didn't have your parents with you, and not all the games were. You had to make up your own games. You had to make up your rules, and you had to apply the rules. You were not surrounded by supervision and making sure that everything's safe and you're doing the right thing. Sometimes you didn't do the right thing. But using the word adventurous again, life was a little bit of an adventure. But I'm seeing that the young guys today, they must be growing up in this virtual world where competition is limited to the computer and playing a game with someone who you don't even know. And what I see is a certain interior. It's not necessarily evident right away, but what I'm sort of seeing is a certain insecurity and a lack of confidence, which produces a certain amount of anxiety. Not when things are going well, but when the pressure is on. It's almost like in a house or in any type of structure. If you have a crack in the subflooring, it does well when there's two people walking around the room. But if the room is filled with people, that's where the crack is gonna crash. And so there is a seam, a hidden fissure in young people today, and I think that they have not really faced the challenges of life, and matter of fact, is one of the reasons I think I mentioned to Jason that with some lay people we're going to open up a farm called Holy Family Farm, and we're almost signing the contract for the hopefully closing on the property soon. But it's really going to be a place where young guys could go, not because they're drug addicted or they have major emotional problems or they're getting off of alcohol. It's not a rehab, but it's a place where the young guys could simply just go and get their hands dirty, get some calluses, and also face certain things. And the way that I see it, and when I was novice master, I sort of ran the novitiate in this way. Guys like to destroy things and build things. It's part of who we are. And difference between guys and girls. Even when you're a boy, if you're outside in the country and you see a crab apple, the first thing you do is you look around for someone to throw it at. The girls, will press it and put it in a scrapbook or something. But guys need to destroy or to build, and so our hope is to have a place where not only they can learn to pray and to appreciate silence and also good fraternity, but to be challenged. Okay, here's a chainsaw. Now they may not have never used a chainsaw before, but at the end of this day, they're going to learn to be proficient with it, and all of that adds up to a guy. A guy could look around and says, you know what, I built that. I tended this garden, or I fed these animals, or whatever the work is, farm work and healthy outdoor work is. Even if you don't talk about it, interiorly you know that I did that, and that's what a guy needs. He needs to know that I could do it, because if you can't get over the littlest obstacles. Matter of fact, someone just told me recently there was three guys. I'm not going to mention it was a Catholic university, and a real good Catholic university. But this guy says he knew three young guys, and they had beautiful girls that they were going to get engaged with, and all three of the guys didn't take the next step. They were too afraid, so there's this. So to answer your question, I personally see, and these are guys, in one sense we could call these guys the cream of the crop. They love the Lord, they love the church, they're very psychologically healthy. However, what I personally see is running sort of in the center. It's an invisible reality, but I could see there's a certain insecurity, a lack of confidence, and a certain anxiety. And because, once again, I think they have not faced reality. So that's why the purpose of the farm, it's going to be real work, real this, real that, and hopefully after the year they're able to step off the farm and out into the world and sort of say, you know what, I could do that.
Well, I think that sounds terrific, Father Sudano. as you're speaking, I'm just thinking of a couple of things. You know, it reminds me a bit about the Catholic worker movement. They used to have a farm, which was in Pennsylvania, and their charism was slightly different, but the same idea, bringing people together in community and doing something pragmatic and actually working. And, you know, what you're saying about the up and coming generation, say, or young men today, having anxiety is something that we actually heard, meaning Andrew, Jason, and myself, through a group that we're a part of at our local parish, which is St. Francis Parish in Greenlawn. And they have a relationship with it's a Catholic, Jason, maybe you can describe it better, but it's a Catholic, I think, Center for Empowerment, you know, maybe therapy, maybe different things.
Oh yeah, Living Waters, yes, Living Waters. Which Father Glenn, I think you know Barbara Campbell and that crew.
Yes.
Yes, and actually I had asked Barbara the same question, which is, what are you seeing? And it wasn't in a podcast, or it was before a podcast or any of that. And, you know, she had said that the newer generation, what she is seeing in them, which she has not seen in prior or other generations, is this anxiety, that there's a tremendous anxiety in young people. And it reminds me a bit of, there's a book that I was reading over the pandemic called iGen by a psychologist, or I think she's a psychologist, Jean Twenge, who talks the same, from 2018, the same about, you know, how the newer generation, they're so focused on technology and security, and really how they struggle to have an adventure, to leave their world, and to really be courageous. And that's something that she is finding after a long-term study with many different generations. She sees that in the new generation.
If the guys are coddled and protected, and like don't go there, you're gonna hurt yourself. Well, you know what? What's wrong with hurting yourself? So whether you scrape your knee or you break your arm, but this is again, sports and school and that now the schools has taken over the recreation. Kids really don't play. I mean, I grew up playing in the streets, so I'm from the 50s and the 60s. So we played in the streets, and so again, they say the little chick in an egg. If you break the egg and you don't allow the chick to break the egg, the chick's going to die. The chick has to break the egg. So there's a real evident need of really facing reality. This generation is too much on the phone, and plus this goes into a whole other discussion. But the pornography is ubiquitous. I would have to say that I can't speak. I'm not speaking from direct knowledge, but of our 9 guys that have come here, I would be surprised of one of them sort of saying, "Well, no, I've never seen about the pornography." Now years ago you had to look for it. When I was young, you had to look for it, and it wasn't necessarily even that raw, whatever. But here, whatever you could imagine, and unfortunately, people have. And when you're young, you are curious, and the younger that you are, so now we have grade school kids in the 4th grade, Googling whatever their silly minds come up with, and then they see it. So our purpose of also the farm is not to sort of say, well, you can't have you can't use the phone. No, but it's to appreciate not having a phone or not being online all the time, not being wedded and to a device. Sort of thing. You know what? I know. We want them to learn to appreciate silence, to appreciate once again the nature of growing your own things, and breaking a sweat, and taking a chance, and learning how to solve a problem, and So yes, this is separate, but the pornography thing is just it's just a scourge, and I'm quite frankly, I'm a little bit I don't know, sanded into word, but maybe frustrated. I don't know what it is, but it seems that the church is quite often silent about this. And if there's any encyclical that has to be written, it has to be written about this. And John Paul II's Theology of the Body, which is almost like the golden key to unlock the chains of pornography and things that go along with pornography. It seems to be sitting in the corner and not really being applied as much as it should. But anyway, so yes, and things do not appear to be getting better. So once again, the guys that I see, so you can get a guy who's very orthodox, has a personal relationship with Christ, loves to pray and loves to serve and all those things, yet at the same time, running up the center of the soul is this fissure, this weakness, and the insecurity and the anxiety, which once again shows itself under pressure. When there's no pressure, no problem. But soon as now there's some type of pressure, all of a sudden you hear the crack.
Father, you were talking about like how we as men were wired for adventure and for kind of like these primal things, and I grew up Protestant. I remember like in my high school and college days there was a book that was really popular called Wild at Heart. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that at all. You familiar with that?
Oh, surely, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
So,
very much so.
I just think it's really interesting how the author was so intent on pointing out that like there's these kind of even as men of faith, we kind of have this primitive kind of primal draw deep down inside us that needs to be met, and it's not like necessarily a profane thing. It's how God made us. It's
right.
So I'm just kind of curious how from your perspective with how you're trying to train up these novitiates and everything, and more generally for laymen as well, like how do we, in a world where the kind of primal instincts of men and everything are just kind of snuffed out by all the convenience and technology and everything, what's a safe and healthy and kind of faithful way of recognizing and tapping into that, obviously in a way that's consistent with the faith of the church and everything, but also not forgetting who we are as men and what the kinds of things that like kind of strike those nerves deep down inside us?
I do think, I mean, it just comes, it's just multifaceted, but one simple thing is really not being comfortable inside. I think nature is important. So something, put it this way, something like going out for a hiking and going camping, going hunting, all of those things are you're going out of your comfort zone. You're doing things that may be, once again, a little bit dangerous, and not that you're being imprudent or you're not following safety measures, but you're stepping away from the television. I think the screen, looking at the screen all the time, is not good, and so I think another simple thing is learning to do some manual work. And people, they're not mowing their lawn, but they're going to the gym. So why don't you mow your own lawn? You'll be saving some money and you're getting the exercise. No, they're paying people to mow their lawn, and then they're paying to go to the gym. To do just manual, even ourselves here, like we don't have a dishwasher. Actually, our house has 18 dishwashers. We all wash our dishes. We all wash dishes. So we all cook. We don't have someone cooking for us. So I mean, these are basic, simple things. But unfortunately, nowadays, that people they don't know how to fry an egg. So just to sort of to put your hands in the soil, either literally or even just figuratively, to feel life, to go outside, to and to learn to build things, and So yeah, I mean, there's many other facets to it, but I think that I think there's some very, very simple things that men can do, and especially with their sons. I mean, the father and the son, the son working with the father, and or going out, or once again, whether it's hunting or camping, just the boys. Girls could do something other another time, but just bringing the boys out. I have a friend, actually. He's starting a farm in Pennsylvania, and he has his son knows how to skin rabbits and take care of the bees, and he's 8 years old. So yeah, I think it's facing life, facing reality, and getting out of our comfort zone.
So thanks, Father. And yeah, I want to just kind of share a little personal story. Is to your point with the father and the son. I mean, definitely growing up, my father, we always go to ball games or throw the ball around. My dad was a little league coach, and actually yesterday I spent time with my future father-in-law and brother-in-law, and we just were watching the race here in Cow Harbor race, and the little 5K race around the community. And we actually threw the ball around. We had a catch, and it was just nice because. Is that, like you said, just time with the boys and that camaraderie, and it was nice. And so, what could one do that is is feeling this anxiety that we know is out there, and how could a man, and even our sisters who are listening too, what could they do to help them get over that anxiety and do, is it prayers? What could they do to take that first step to kind of get out of that comfort zone?
Well, I could go back again. It's getting out of the house. I think that nature has a healing facets to it, and taking some type of being creative and having a sort of an entrepreneur, not necessarily to make money, but to do things, and especially for other people. It's very, very important that we could be so self-centered and always concerned about ourselves and how we feel and my health and all of this stuff, and it becomes very myopic and very egocentric, and so. To go out and to help another person, to consider the needs of the poor or the elderly, or especially in our neighborhoods. You could throw a stone in any direction, and there's someone that needs some help, and maybe needs some practical help. So they need something painted, or they need a light bulb changed, or they need whatever. So I think that we're somewhat, as I say, navel gazing, so I think thinking of the needs of other people, the real practical needs of other people, to do something for others, and if you can't think of anything, then ask someone, but once again, when you're walking around and the only concern that you have is staring at the screen that you keep in your side pocket all the time, and you're spending hours with posting things and texting things and this and this, it's like, come on, I would tell a person, you know what? Here's an experiment. Live 1 week without your using your device. Live 1 week. So see if you could survive. And people, believe me, they won't even go out of the house without it. I mean, they're so afraid of being separated, not having their phone with them, as if the Martians are going to come down and kidnap them. So they always have to have this, again, safety. What if? What if I get this? What if I get that? What if this, that? So I need this. I have to have this, and we have to I'm not saying that there's anything wrong. I'm not saying that I'm not anti-technology, but I'm anti dependent on something which people go over dependent. They go to bed with their phone. Now, when artificial intelligence comes in, and now you're able to have a conversation with your phone, and actually the phone will be able to have a very interesting conversation. The phone could probably do a podcast with you. This is going to be frightening. It's because after a while, people who are lonely are simply just going to actually develop a friendship with their phone, and the person doesn't exist. But it's a very high functioning computer which is able to take the tenor of your voice and take social cues, verbal cues, and have a very interesting conversation more than maybe any other person. And people are just going to be with their phone.
Yeah, that's pretty scary, Father Sudano.
It is.
And I think that what stands out to me is having, based on what you had just said about people who could theoretically form some sort of a hypothetical relationship with artificial intelligence, is that if they were to have some sense of a friendship, it's all perfectly fantasy. None of it actually exists.
There was a movie they made on that.
Is that right?
He fell in love with Siri.
Yeah.
I forget the name.
Well, the other big danger is there's going to be a combination of three things: technology, pornography, and drugs. And people are going to put on these. They're going to find them. You're going to find people dead from starvation because they're going to be in an empty apartment with a mattress on the floor and a 3D helmet on their head, and they're just not going to be able to stop because the 3D technology and combined with the drugs, which only extends and heightens the sexual functioning of a person, they're gonna find people simply just dead because we have to start weaning ourselves away from these things, and there are very good applications of all of these things, but this is a very practical thing that people can do. And during we're supposed to be fasting during Lent, and even on Fridays, if you're not having meat, we're supposed to be replacing with something. What if there's one day that people start to say, you know what, I'm not going to use my device today. I'm not going to go online. I'm not going to look. I'm not going to text. I'm going to fast from social media for one day. I'm sure there's plenty of people who are not going to be able to do it. So there's a good beginning in terms of answering your question where we could start. I think this is a very practical thing that people could start doing. Start weaning themselves away from the virtual world and social media, and start picking up a book, reading a book, or going out into nature, and or playing a game of softball out in the field.
Right.
We are actually holding a bat and hitting a ball.
Right. Absolutely, Father. I think that that's a very pragmatic and reasonable approach.
Yep.
My question too is, following up on all of that, is the faith component. Now, working with postulants, you're presumably with men who are fairly far along the road of faith. They have a well-developed faith, they're on their way to it. They have an interest in it, they have a desire for it, and they're putting some action behind it. But I'm sure that you're also in connection, in contact, or are aware of the typical, maybe Catholic, culturally Catholic male, or even not Catholic male in the world today, who very likely struggles with any notion of faith, any push to place into action anything regarding faith in their own lives. And so my question to you is, you've delineated very well things that men can do to grow in masculinity. My question to you is, on the faith level, what are some of those things?
Well, some type of an encounter with God. Not that it has to be fireworks, but actually it could be just having people spend some time in silence and in solitude is I don't mean solitude meaning you have to necessarily be by yourself, but I mean my point being is that to be away from once again some of the distractions is the beginning of trying to recognize that I have an interior life, that I have to get a sense of how am I feeling, or what do I think, what am I thinking, what's going on within me, and so at least carving some time out where the person is able to spend some time in silence and even if it's a solitude, I don't mean necessarily you have to be by yourself, but just away from a lot of the distractions. I think that it's a good beginning. I've been, as some of you, I think that Jason knows, I work with people that have demonic difficulties, and while a lot of people always think of exorcism as being a matter of praying with people and the holy water thing and everything like that. While that could be a part of it, it's actually a small part of it. Much of my work is trying to get people to develop a way of life and an interior life, which the demonic finds offensive and obnoxious, and they don't want to be there. So it's almost like if any one of us was stuck in a basement with ankle-deep sewer water, and it was actually freezing down there, and they were playing loud rap music. Well, unless sorry if some of our listeners like rap, but point being is that you want to get out of that place as soon as you can, and so to create an interior life where there's order and there's beauty, and this is what we have to do. So a scheduled life, to try to schedule our life, it doesn't have to be in a militaristic way or even in a monastic way, but we should have a time when we know that we're getting up and we're going to bed. Now, during the week, this is often the case because people have to work, and so that's somewhat settled. But to order our days, our work days and our weekdays, our weekends, is more than helpful, because quite often we when things are not, when we're sort of eating when we want to eat, and we're waking up when we want to wake up, and we're going to bed when we want to, it creates it creates a chaotic environment, and in fact, this is why some people that have demonic problems, I have to really help them to at least begin to schedule their lives. I compare it to a field that's a field of mud, and they have these demolition derby cars, smashing one another. The demons like rebellion. They don't like hierarchy. They don't like order. They want everything to be just, I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. Well, life is not like that. So we want to turn the muddy field where the cars are crashing into one another into a parking lot, which is paved. There's lines, there's lights, there's signs, there's places where you can park and where you can't park. That meaning you're turning chaos into cosmos. So on a very practical level, for us to somehow start ordering our lives and praying at particular times. Okay, I'm going to say the Rosary at this time. I'm going to maybe say the Divine Office, which is a wonderful way of ordering one's life, because there's morning prayer and evening prayer. So to try to once again to create an environment which is not simply just haphazard or rebellious, or even when it comes to religious things. Well, maybe I'll go to the 9 o'clock mass. No, I'll go to the 10th. I don't feel I want to sleep in. No, go to the same mass all the time. Not because don't do what you feel like doing. Make a good choice of what you should do it, and then do that. and that's very, very healthy spiritually.
And it's funny because we were as we were lining this up, this conversation, Father, we did want to talk about spiritual warfare, and and somehow magically you started that conversation before we were even to ask the question. So if you could just discuss a little bit about which you did a little bit, but spiritual warfare, what is it, and how can men defeat it, and as well as any of our fellow sisters in Christ that may be listening.
Yeah. Well, I compare it to you could use the warfare motif, but there's also it's a medical motif one could use. You could have a wound, and the wound, if you could wash it and care for the wound, put medication on it, and then in time the wound would get better. But if there's no antiseptic, then it becomes septic, and then the wound becomes infected. So what people that have demonic problems is that they're sort of like they're like germs or a virus that settles into a particular in the body, and it has to come into the body in a particular way, or I should say the person. So obviously, one big way that people get an infection or they get sick, quote unquote, spiritually sick, is by sin. You know, when you're living a sinful life, you're going to get you can be a place which will draw demonic entities, is because it's darkness. Well, they like darkness. Like a moth is attracted to a light. Like, a porch light in the summer, you see a moth flying around it. These things are attracted to darkness. So if there's anything dark in us, and it doesn't have to be this major, major thing, but if there's some darkness, these things are curious. And if it's really, really dark, they're really, really curious. And so they sort of enter into a person. So avoiding sin, and this is why Jesus tells us that I'm the way of the truth and the life, that if we don't stick on the way, the straight and narrow path, we're going to get lost in the woods. And a lot of people are lost in the woods. And when you're lost in the woods, you're going to get bit by something very small or very big. But whatever it is, you're going to be wandering in the woods. And Jesus simply just tells us to walk on the way. Yes, it is straight, it is narrow, it does go up, but this is the Christian life. But one of the benefits of being in a state of grace is that the demons they're not interested in you because you're filled with light. So for a person to be liberated from demonic attachments, they basically just have to grow in a life of grace. They have to start making sure that they're praying every day, they're avoiding sin, they're receiving the sacraments, especially Holy Eucharist, confession. They're developing a deep and a mature relationship with the Mother of God and with the saints, and they're being faithful to their vocation in life. When you're walking on the way, you're not afraid of the woods, of the lions or the whatever in the woods, because why? You're safe on the way. So being in a state of grace is preventative from any type of demonic thing. We should not be afraid of demons. People are afraid of demons. They should be afraid of sin. It's not demons you be afraid of. Quite frankly, demons are afraid of us, but they're not afraid of us if we are not living in a state of grace. If I could say this in terms of with men, and if I could address the fathers of the families, curiously, a father of a family does have authority, direct authority over evil, because of the patriarchal blessing that they have. So, quite frankly, a father of a family, let's say if their child is having bad dreams, or there's something that's going on that it may be very evidently there's something of a demonic nature to it. The father of the family actually has authority to command the demons out. He doesn't have to call up the bishop. He's not doing a formal exorcism, But by right of his fatherhood, he could say, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I am commanding you to leave my child right now. I'm commanding you by the authority of my baptism and by my authority as father of this family. I'm commanding you to leave right now, leave my house, and go to the foot of the cross and never return to me. But however, that man has to be in the light. That man has to be faithful. I had a man called me up one time and told him that he had two children. I think they were twins, but one of them kept the son. I think he was only 2 years old. Was getting slapped, by something. The child would start crying in the middle of the night, and the father would even see this red mark on the child's face. And another time that the child was complaining that there was a man in the room. Anyway, the man called me up. He said, "What should I do?" So I said, "Are you Catholic?" And he says, "Yes." I says, "Are you practicing your Catholic faith?" And he hesitated. And he says, "Well, not really." I said, "Well, that's too bad." He says, "Because I was going to tell you to go into that room and command this thing to leave your house." I said, "But the demon will laugh at you if you try doing this. It's because you're not being." So I said, "My suggestion is you go to make a good confession, start going to Mass, and start the Catholic life. Now you have authority over anything that's bothering your sons. Now you could command these things to leave your house." Now I didn't hear from him, so I don't know exactly what happened, but so I work with these people as priest. I use my priestly authority to help liberate people from demonic attachments. But every individual has authority over themselves. I tell them, you do it. By the virtue of your baptism, you command this thing to leave. Now, it doesn't. It's not necessarily always 100% effective, but it has to begin with the person taking authority and sort of say, you know what? Put it this way: if someone walked into your house, I have no authority to tell them to leave, but you do. It's your house. So, especially fathers of families, they have to recognize that they are the spiritual leader of the house. They're the ones that are supposed to sort of say, okay, we're saying the rosary at this time. I mean, of course, they're going to consult with their wife and they're going to use common sense, but the wife should not be asking the husband, honey, should we, we're supposed to be praying. The father should be leading the prayer. He doesn't have to completely do everything, but it should be most evident that he's leading the prayer and he's calling and he's keeping the family on track in terms of keeping prayer central in the house, and the father of the family in particular, just like in the past, he protected the home from people that walked on the property. If someone was on the property, the man of the house would get the rifle off the wall, stand on the porch, and ask the person that was on the property, "What do you want?" And the person would walk off the property with a gun pointing at their rear end. Well, are men protecting their family from intruders? And the intruder is once again coming in over the television and coming in over the phone, and they're more dangerous than any person that could do a physical harm, because this infection is actually hurting the souls of their spouse and their children, which could be terribly devastating. So fathers of the families have to, while they're not doing a formal exorcism, but they should have an understanding that the demonic infestation of many homes where there's confusion, there's separation, there's a lot of nonsense and sin going on. Quite often, the man is sleeping at the switch. The man is forget about a gun. Forget about even a water gun. He has a slingshot, and he doesn't even know how to use it. I think that we're having many problems in families is because men are not owning up to who they are and what their responsibilities are, and the wife's job is not to protect the children. It's his job to protect her and her children, but not just simply just physical assault, but spiritual assault.
And Father, so to follow up on that as we begin to wrap up, what do you say to the person that is doing all of this stuff and they're still kind of getting spiritually attacked, or there's anxieties, and there's, as I think we've had a conversation, you said there's squirrels, right?
Correct.
How do we defend from the squirrels if we're doing everything that we're supposed to be
Well,
doing?
you don't know what you're doing everything, and so this is where spiritual direction and getting some type of spiritual counsel is helpful. Obviously, if there's something going on, there may be an opening somewhere, and quite frankly, we use the word attack. When you're in the military, you shouldn't be surprised that you're being attacked, because it's what you do with the attack. It's how you it's sort of how you man up to the attack. When you're playing football, and you sort of say, I can't believe that this linebacker is coming after me. Well, what are you surprised about? That's part of the game. So that we have obstacles is part of it's part of the spiritual life. But I think getting some type of spiritual counsel, especially if there are some unusual things that may be going on, like disturbing dreams or any other manifestations or evident manifestations of evil, that a person should get some type of direct counsel from a priest or who is knowledgeable of this.
All right. Well, thank you, Father. That was a very interesting topic and very insightful discussion. So I think Alan and Andrew, do you have anything else before we close?
I do not, but I would invite Father, unless Andrew has something to say. If Father has anything else to say, if Father feels there's something that we or our listeners should hear that maybe he hasn't had a chance to say, or something that's on his heart.
No, I was just going to give a little bit of a plug, because we're with the Holy Family Farm. First of all, we please pray for this project, because it's sort of a new initiative. We don't. There are things like this happening throughout the country of let's say, communities of Catholics getting together and this and that, but this is unique in the sense of it's a place to help young men to discern their future and for their spiritual formation. So it's not a rehabilitation place. It's a place where a young man can actually recognize his call to manhood, and whether he's called to be a father of a family or a father in a parish, or maybe even a single man consecrated to Christ in some way. So it is a new venture, and so I would just ask everyone to pray for Holy Family Farm, and anyone that may be interested in learning more. We have a good website, informative website, holyfamilyfarm.org, and if they want to see me making a fool of myself by talking to a chicken, they could go to our Facebook page and see Holy Family Farm on Facebook, and because sometimes you have to do silly things in order to raise money.
All right. Well, I think that's about it, right, guys? I mean,
yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, Father Glenn, I want to thank you for coming on, and everybody listening. If you guys enjoy what we're doing, go ahead and click the subscribe button so you can get notifications when we release new episodes. And that's it for this time. And for Jason,
I just want to want to encourage you. Whatever this work that you're doing, this is very, very good, very important, very necessary. Keep it up, and don't get discouraged. And damn the torpedoes, and full speed ahead. And you'll be learning as you're going on. And so this is a very, very good thing. And I wish God's richest blessing upon each of you personally, and on also this podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Father.
Father. That means a lot. Mm-hmm. We really appreciate that. And
okay.
Yeah, I think we all want the same thing here. So we'll just wrap this up by just saying thanks everyone for listening, and thanks again from Father Glenn Sudano for joining us. And St. Joseph, pray for us.
Amen. Pray for us. God bless you guys.
God
You
bless,
too.
Father. Thanks.